Hey everybody, it's Griswold, and in this video I've got a story for you that I've never told anyone outside of my circle of friends. I've never told this story publicly, and the reason that I'm doing it now is because I was just recounting this story recently, and first, it's an awesome story. I think you're going to like it, and most importantly, there's a lesson in here. There's something that you can take away. There's a correlation that'll help you really get what it will take to make your ex come back to you. If you listen to this story and do what it says and take away the lesson, then you'll find that there's a lot of power for you to recreate the relationship that you want and put yourself back in control. So here's the deal. I used to own a real estate acquisition company, right? Which basically meant I would go around to people who owned real estate and I would offer to buy it from them, and then I would sell it to a developer. So I was the middleman that basically just brokered the deal. Now, on one particularly hot July day a few years ago, I drive up to this guy's house, and I see what looks to be probably a 75-year-old man pushing a lawnmower. Now, you got to understand, it's probably 100 degrees. I lived in Virginia at the time, and it's remarkably humid, okay? And he's got 8 acres, and he's pushing this lawnmower in the middle of the day. So instantly, I like this guy. We start chatting. It turns out the dude is 93. Well, we start chatting, and as it turns out, he was married before. His wife passed away a few years ago, but they never had any kids. And just based on his absolute raw determination to be out there mowing the grass at 93 years old in the blazing sun, I instantly liked him. And I kind of felt bad for him because he's by himself and he didn't really have anybody to visit him. So I decided I was going to go over and visit him maybe once every couple of weeks, which I did. So I'd go over, and over the course of a few months, we went through Thanksgiving. I took him over a Thanksgiving meal because, there was nobody to cook for him. Stopped by on Christmas, and we became, kind of friends. He was a perfectly crotchety old man, one of those like grumpy old men types. So he'd come over and he'd ask, who I was. He always called me a slick Willie, right? Who you slick Willieing these days? Because he knew I wanted to buy this land. Well, on one particular day before I came out to Denver for my first trip, I was going to go snowboarding. I wanted to stop by and see him. So I stopped by, and one of the things that he would always bring up when I would visit him was, have I read the paper? I guess when you're 93 years old, there's really not much else to do. So I knew, reading the paper was a big deal for him. But as I drove up into his driveway, I noticed that there were 4 newspapers piled on his front step. I thought this was odd, and his car was in the driveway. So, I came up and I knocked on the door, and there was no answer. And I knocked on the door again. And suddenly it occurred to me, dude, my friend is 93 years old. He's died in his house, and there's nobody in there. Nobody's even going to know because nobody comes to visit him. Now, I had a decision to make at this point, whether to take massive action and act on my instincts and risk embarrassment, or just to walk away. So, after going around and checking every window, I finally just kicked the door in, right? Like it was an episode of Cops or something. And when I did, the smell that came from inside the house of just rancid, several-day-old urine and poop, and I could hear in the back room, gasping for breath. My 93-year-old friend, John, gasping for breath. So I run to the back of the house where half of his body is on the bed, and then his legs are draped over, and his feet were the size of eggplants and about the color too. I found the story out later. I'll tell you what happened. But there he is, just barely clinging to life. I run over and I grab his hand, and with every bit of strength he has, he holds onto my hand, and you can see the desperation in his eyes. His tongue is swollen. It just looks like somebody took a mound of dirt and poured it in his mouth. So immediately I get on the phone, I call 911, and they say, what is the address? And I'm so freaked out, I don't even know the address. So I'm like, John, I'll be right back. So I run outside, get the address, come back in. The ambulance shows up several minutes later, take him to the ER. Fortunately, they were able to pump him full of IVs. What had happened was, several days ago, this was a Thursday, and I think on Sunday or so, he had fallen in the bathroom at the sink, and then broken his hip, drug himself out of the bathroom, and how you kind of climb up onto the bed using your elbows? At 93 years old, he had done this, and then every time he would sit up to try to get to the phone to call 911, he would get vertigo and just fall over. So for several days, he was in there, and of course he couldn't remember which day it was, but for several days he was in there just like that. Now, Here's the deal. I'm standing there as they pull him off, and the police come, and they say, so, sir, how did you get into the house? And I tell them, well, I kicked the door in. And they're like, oh my God, thank God you did that. His neighbor had called us yesterday saying that they hadn't seen him go in or out, but since we didn't have a warrant, we couldn't do anything. So fortunately, he went to rehab, and he had a couple more years on his life to enjoy, and didn't end up dying in his house. Now, what is the correlation? The thing is that it's the same for you. Anything in your life that you want to change, you have to take massive action. And here's the thing, you have to risk embarrassment. How embarrassing and humiliating would it have been if I would have kicked his door in and he was taking a nap? Or if he was on vacation? Or if he was, just in the bathroom? There was a lot of risk for me in this. But I followed my instinct. And you have your instincts, right? To me, the risk of me being embarrassed was worth the possibility of me helping my friend. For you, the risk of possible rejection and possible having to work on your relationship, is it worth the possibility of getting back together and recreating the relationship that you want? For some of you, it is. For those of you who are in the 1%, the 1%ers who want to create the life that you want, it is worth it. And that's why I'm going to invite you to, just like I did, take massive action now. You see, if I hadn't done anything, then who knows how things would have gone for John. And if you don't take action, then who's to say what's going to happen with your relationship? It's only through action that our results are guaranteed. Sitting around and thinking, that produces thoughts, but action is what produces effect. And in what I've called the M3 system, it's like having me as your pocket relationship coach. I walk you through exactly what to do to remove all of the obstacles in the way of you and your ex, to clear the slate. So instead of just anger and bitterness and resentment being in the way, or jealousy or controlling or any of that stuff, you learn and discover how to move that out of the way so that there's space to create what you want to create, which is love, which is intimacy and compatibility. Think about this. Most relationships, when they start, are great, right? Can't get enough of each other. That's how it was for you and your ex. Well, what happened? Every relationship, when it starts, is great because there's no mess. There's nothing in the way. There's no junk or bad emotions. This system that I put together for you is created to erase all of the bad stuff so that you can create what you want. So I'm going to invite you to click on the link right now. Getting started is easy. It's just a couple clicks of a button and filling out some information. But the value that you get, the way that it can change your life and put you in control of your love life and your relationships once and for all, that is the real value. So go ahead and click on the link below so that you can get started. And then you can look back on today as the day that you made the decision to take massive action because your relationship and your love life is worth it. My name is Michael Griswold, and I'll see you in the members area, and I look forward to hearing your success story as well.